This week I made this industrial modern dual workstation desk with a his and hers work area and a 2-monitor editing and sound recording setup for myself. The tabletop of this desk is going to be made from beech, and I chose beech because of its light color, its straight grain, and fairly tight grain structure. And you saw that I went ahead and cut them to rough length and did a straight line rip down the length of these boards because when I got them from the lumber yard, they were so wide, they were extremely heavy. This is 8/4 lumber, which means it's almost 2 inches thick. Managing that through my joiner and my planer would have been really difficult. After the milling process, I ended up with enough lumber to make this 8-foot long by 2-foot wide desktop. I arranged the boards to match up the grain patterns while also picking the best sides to use for the top. Then I cut in dominoes for alignment and glued up the tabletop. For the legs on this desk, I wanted something really unique, so I jumped into SketchUp and I designed these tapered legs that have these circle cutouts going all the way down. And the best way to cut these legs out is on a plasma CNC, and luckily I've got a friend here in the city who's got a plasma table, and we're gonna head over to his shop now. Oh my God, you gotta see how awesome this thing is. Check this out. Okay, I'm in the shop with Richard from 42 Fab. We're gonna do some cutting on his plasma table. All right, I got my steel cut, and that only took like 30 minutes. That's awesome. Thanks, Richard. All right, moving on to the legs, and what I'm gonna do is weld on this 2-inch flat bar onto each side and create sort of this tapered I-beam structure. So I've gone ahead and cut this piece of scrap wood to the exact width that is gonna hold this piece in the exact center of this piece, like so. The two work areas of this desk are separated by a central cabinet, which I'll build next. Using a straight edge and a circular saw, I began breaking down these 5x5 sheets of Baltic birch plywood. Over on the table saw, I cut the panels down to size before setting the blade to 45 degrees and cutting in the miters. Next, I cut in more dominoes into those box miters to strengthen these joints, and then glued up the cabinet box. I'm using 1/2-inch birch plywood for the drawer boxes, and after breaking down the 4x8 panel into smaller pieces, I cut all the drawer parts for the 3 drawers over on the table saw. With all the drawer parts cut, I use a 1/4-inch bit on the router table to cut in a groove to accept the 1/4-inch birch plywood drawer bottom. By the way, I got this Husky tool cabinet and workbench from Home Depot, and it's leveled up my shop storage and organization while giving me extra workbench space. Also new to the shop, this adjustable height 2-drawer Husky workbench that works perfect for my outfeed table, which if you watch my videos, you know I've needed for the last 6 months. I also added this Husky extendable square and this Husky 12-in-1 ratcheting screwdriver, so make sure to check out all the links below. And I'm partnered up with Home Depot and Husky Tools this year and next while I build out my Husky Dream Shop, and you're not going to want to miss that. To assemble these drawers, I'm pre-drilling holes on the front and the back of the drawer and then driving in these 1-inch screws. Getting back to the tabletop, I sanded the whole thing up to 120 grit. At this point, the table is about 3 inches too long to account for any misalignment in the glue up, and now I can use my track saw to cut the top down to 96 inches. Next up, I routed in a heavy 45-degree chamfer on the bottom of the table, which I did in 2 passes, and ended up with a pretty serious case of sawdust crotch. Probably should have worn an apron here. Next, I flipped the table over and routed in a light chamfer on the top of the table, which makes the desk comfortable to use and rest your arms while typing. This is my new CNC machine. It's awesome. Make sure you get subscribed because in the next video, I'm gonna tell you all about it and do a project with it. But I jumped on here real quick and cut out a test pocket for the C-channel. Now, this steel C-channel is gonna get inlaid into the bottom of the table and help keep the whole thing flat. And check it out. Fits perfect. Look at that. Being such a long table, it's more likely I would experience some warping, and to combat this, I'm inlaying steel C-channel. You can order C-channel that's pre-cut and drilled, but I decided to make my own. This is 2-inch by 1-inch leg C-channel, and I cut it down to 19-inch pieces. Next, I drilled in 3/8-inch holes, which I elongated by drilling multiple holes next to each other. This is going to allow for that seasonal wood movement while also holding the table nice and flat. I hit these with some rusty metal primer first, and then came back with a couple coats of black spray paint. Getting back to the cabinet, I added this beech hardwood edge banding I made from some of those tabletop scraps. I glued these on and secured them with these bandy clamps, which are made just for this purpose. The drawer faces are going to carry through that circle cutout design element of the desk legs and those side panels. While the drawer faces are being cut over on the X-Carve Pro, I installed the 3 sets of drawer slides. One nice thing about working with Beech is it doesn't have a lot of knot holes. On this entire 8-foot long desk, I only had 1 knot hole to fill, and I did that with some Total Boat epoxy and black pigment. Back to the drawers, I'm painting the front of each drawer yellow, which will show through that drawer front cutout as a nice pop of color that works well with the light colored wood and the color that I'm going to paint the steel legs. More on that in a minute. To attach the legs, I'll create a bracket, and once I had that placement figured out, I drilled in 4 holes into each of those pieces of 2-inch flat bar that I'm using for this. And next up, I welded on those brackets to the top of each leg. Now, I initially planned to leave the steel raw, but I didn't like the way that looked, so I settled on this light gray, which I think plays well with the light colored wood and those yellow accents. I gave the table a final sanding with my Mirka sander and softened all the edges before rolling on 3 coats of this Total Boat Halcyon varnish. Next up, I'll install the C-channel by adding threaded inserts into the bottom of the table. The C-channel then gets attached with these 1/4-inch flathead bolts. Back to the cabinet, I installed the drawer faces with some 1-inch screws. I flipped the cabinet over and used some epoxy adhesive to mount the steel side panels. I also added these pieces of flat bar that are going to act as the feet of the cabinet. I hand routed in the recess for the leg bracket and then added threaded inserts to attach the legs. I drilled in 3 holes to the top of the cabinet that will be used to attach the cabinet to the underside of the table, again using threaded inserts. And last, I could add the 1/4-inch back panel, and this desk was done. Not that long ago, this was just a 3D drawing, and now it's a big pile of desk parts, and I cannot wait to put this all together. Let's do it. I'm setting this desk up with a dual monitor editing bay for myself to include this Kensington MacBook dock, and I'll make sure to leave links for everything I use down below. On the other side is Katie's iMac, and with her working from home more often now, we both finally have our own workstations. The drawers have these built-in finger pulls, and I added some storage trays, and the bottom drawer gets set up as a filing cabinet. Alright, thanks for watching. Make sure to get subscribed. And as always, Thanks for checking this one out, and I'll see you back here next time.